together this supervision training for us and potentially for our child care staff. Thanks, Karen, and I'm going to turn it over to you. Oh, before I do that, just another reminder that if you have questions for Karen that you would like her to address, you can text me, and my number is 931-307-3764, and I will get those questions to her probably at the end. And if you have any technical difficulties, text me. That's the easiest way for me to deal with it. I'm going to hand the microphone over to Karen and put myself on mute. Karen?
Thank you, Mary Lou. And thank you, everyone, for joining me today to talk about supervising young children in an early childhood setting. And just a reminder, well, if I can get that the resources used for the development of this webinar are Caring for Our Children, National Health and Safety Performance Standards and Guidelines for Early Care and Education Programs, 3rd edition, and of course the Tennessee Department of Human Services Child Care Licensing Rules. As you can see here, there are quite a few components of our discussion about supervision, with active and positive supervision being in the middle. Facility, policy, environment, outdoors, high-risk activities, and interactions are all part of how we supervise young children in the early childhood classroom. Caregivers who practice active, positive supervision are always aware of and constantly scanning their environment for potential safety hazards. They stand in strategic positions and put themselves in locations where children play. And they scan play activities, circulate around the play areas, and focus on positive rather than negative behavior in order to teach children safety rules. As we start our discussion, I'd like to remind everyone that nobody is immune from mistakes, and no setting is immune from mistakes, and supervision issues can happen anywhere. By using good judgment, caregivers can prevent safety and health issues from affecting children they care for. First, we're going to talk about the facility. This means the facility itself, including the building, the playground, the parking lot. Caregivers must know the whereabouts of children at all times. And by inspecting the facility before closing, caregivers will know that no child has been mistakenly forgotten inside the building or on the playground. And we all know that children will hide or can find themselves in places where caregivers are not present without caregivers knowing that they're there. A staff person or two should be assigned to carry out pre-closing inspection each day, and staff absence should be taken into consideration to maintain consistency of this practice. This includes playground inspections. Children have been known to hide or fall asleep in playground equipment or wander into unsupervised areas both inside and out. Inspections should be thorough and should be done daily. One way to ensure that supervision is strong within a facility is to carry out regular emergency drills. Care providers should not have to look at an evaluation plan to know where to take children in emergency situations. These times are loud, chaotic, and frightening for both adults and children, and lapses in supervision can be a result. Children can learn how to react to alarms as they get older and can help providers carry out evacuations safely. Next, we talk about policies. There is no such thing as too much policy on supervision. Written policies should be in place and address DHS supervision requirements and additional requirements of the facility with regards to supervision. Requiring identification for people who pick up children, requiring adults to sign children in and out, and having a policy in place for children who ride the bus to and from child care are all part of recommended written policy. Your child care picks up children from a local elementary school to drop off at your school age program. The bus arrives today and Samuel wasn't on it. You ask the bus driver where Samuel is and she tells you that the lady from the school said he wasn't there today. Is there anything else you need to do to ensure that Samuel is safe? The bus driver in this case did the right thing by asking the school where Samuel was because he didn't get on the bus. You, however, must go one step further and call Samuel's family to find out where he is. How does this have to do with supervision, you might ask? If the parent of a child contracts with you to pick up their child from school and bring them to your child care, that contract is one of custody and therefore of supervision. You must honor that contract by finding out from the parent why Samuel was not on the bus. Parents forget. Things happen. But until you know that Samuel is safe somewhere else, you must assume responsibility for his safety. Next, we're going to talk about head counts. And when we think about counting children in our classroom, we don't need to just consider counting little heads as they bob about in line or in the hallway. Head counts include counting children and putting names with faces. Head counts should be done before and after transitions, whether you leave the room or not. This includes at arrival and departure. When teachers change shifts, the leaving teacher should count and the arriving teacher should do a head count. And before and after completing routines. There should never be a time when you don't know how many children you have in your care. Mary and Elizabeth take their toddler classroom of 10 children outside every day. All of the toddlers can walk. They must go down the hall, through the gym, to the other side of the basketball court, to the door that leads to the playground. How many times during their journey to the playground should Mary and Elizabeth count the toddlers in their care? Take a moment and think about this. The answer is at least 4 times. Before leaving the classroom, teachers should count the children. Once the children and the teachers go down the hall and reach the gym, the children should be counted again. After the children cross the gym to go out to the door to the playground, a head count must be completed. And finally, once they get to the playground. This does not mean that you can only count children 4 times in this situation. However, there are at least 4 times when teachers need to make sure that all of the children have arrived at a doorway or threshold safely. Our next topic of discussion is assigned caregivers. The assigned caregiver system gives adults an exact number of children who they are responsible for at any given time. Supervision becomes a problem when children are shuffled between groups or when caregivers have too many children to care for on their own. Valerie and Margie are infant teachers who typically care for 7 babies together. Today, however, Margie has been pulled because Valerie only has 4 babies. You are observing in this classroom. The fire alarm sounds and Valerie tells you to grab a baby and follow her to the playground. You pick up a baby as Valerie carries 3 babies in her arms out to the playground. After the drill, you ask Valerie what she would have done if you hadn't been there. And she says, "I don't know. That never happened before." What's the supervision issue in this scenario? Staff should have practiced what to do in this situation, including how to transport the children to the playground and who would assist the infant teacher if she is alone in the classroom. This is a good example of a situation that should have been practiced in an emergency drill. Our next topic is environment. Program spaces should be designed with visibility that allows constant, unobstructed adult supervision. Having children visible to caregivers is key to keeping children safe. Classroom shape, bathroom and sink placement, and furniture placement and room arrangement can all contribute to supervision problems. Crawl-through tunnels, tents, and lofts also create areas where children may not be adequately supervised. Do you see supervision issues in this classroom? There are several. Here you can see a crawl-through tunnel where a child could hide, or children could possibly become unsupervised. Behind the tall loft, or in this area of the classroom where the area is L-shaped. And then, of course, between the wall and the loft. What about here? Do you see supervision issues in this classroom? Absolutely. These shelves are too tall for caregivers to see children behind. Next, we move to supervision outdoors. Children are naturally more active while playing outside, and playground design and equipment can make supervision more difficult. Caregivers must use the zone defense method when supervising children outdoors. By standing in strategic places and scanning the environment, caregivers get a view of all children at all times. There should never be only one adult on the playground with children, no matter how many children are present that day. Good communication is vital to supervision of young children. Caregivers on the playground must have a way to communicate with people in the building. A way to communicate that is consistent and reliable. Mallory works with the school age group at her church child care center. The child care center picks up children from 3 different schools. Mallory gets her first group of children at 3:15, and then the rest of her school age group arrives at the child care center at 3:45. Today, Mallory is on the playground with the first group of children when the second group of children arrive at the center. Mallory sends one of her more reliable school-agers in to ask her co-teacher how many kids are present today and if one of them can carry out the cooler of water and cups when they come to the playground. What are the potential supervision problems you see in this scenario? Children should not be sent into the building unless accompanied by an adult. Remember, children must be supervised by an adult at all times while in your care. Now we're going to talk about high-risk activities. High-risk activities include meals, snacks, outdoor play, sand, water, and nap time. But depending on the age of the child and the circumstances, of the activity, any activity may become high risk. During high-risk activities, the adult must remain focused and within sight, sound, and easy reach of children at all times. It is during these times that caregivers must not just be within sight, but must be able to hear children and be able to get to children in case of an emergency. Now ask yourself, are these high-risk activities? The answer is maybe. Any activity that children are not used to doing or that involves use of emerging skills can present a higher level of risk. You can see here, children are working with sharp paintbrushes and paint, and the caregiver has her back turned to them. This is not good supervision of this activity. In this case, however, while the children are playing on gross motor equipment, this caregiver is available and attentive. Next, we'll talk about interactions. Everyday interactions within the classroom often include supervision. There are several ways that caregivers can promote safety through their interactions with young children. Knowing each child's abilities is one way to know how to supervise that child. This is learned through interacting with children. Through their interactions, caregivers must establish clear and simple safety rules and teach children safe and appropriate use of each piece of equipment. Being aware of and constantly scanning the environment for potential safety hazards is also a part of your responsibility as a caregiver. Understanding the difference between facilitation of play and supervision of play is also important. Caregivers who are actively involved in play or other activities with some of the children should never be the person responsible for supervision of all of the children. Take a moment and look at this picture. Do you think this caregiver is facilitating play, or is she in a position to supervise all the children? At this moment, she is a facilitator of play. You can see that there are children elsewhere on the playground who at this moment are unsupervised. That doesn't mean that this caregiver is doing anything wrong. It just means that right now she is not able to supervise the other children who are not involved in this activity. Hopefully, there are other adults on the playground to serve in the supervision role. What about these pictures? At this moment on this playground, do you think the caregivers are the supervisors or the facilitators of play? Depending on the children that they are responsible for supervising, the answer to this question could go either way. Let's assume, though, that these are not all of the children that this caregiver is responsible for supervising, and there are others who are playing on play equipment elsewhere. Is this caregiver facilitating or in a position to supervise play? Given the scenario, again, this provider is facilitating play. The same is true for this picture. Let's do one more. What about this picture? You see here there are two adults on the playground at each end of the play equipment. Do you think these caregivers are facilitating or supervising play? The answer here is both. While this caregiver may be in the middle of a discussion with the child on the playground and may not be able to see all of the other children, because of their positioning on the playground, both caregivers can see all of the children from their location. Finally, I want to discuss for a moment any characteristics and behaviors that can impact your ability to supervise young children. Sometimes caregivers are tired or ill when they come to work, and may not be as alert and able to supervise children as they typically are. Keep this in mind when you're not feeling your best or when you suspect that you may not be able of caring for all the children in your classroom due to fatigue or illness. Sometimes inexperience or poor training leads to problems with supervision. If you don't feel that you have enough training or knowledge to supervise the amount of children or the age of children that you have in your classroom, talk to your director or administrator. And finally, your attitude or philosophy towards supervision plays a huge part in how you supervise children in your classroom. If you would like more training on supervision or technical assistance on supervision, please contact your local CCR&R. All right, Mary Lou, I think I'm done.
Thank you, Karen. And that ends our professional development webinar for this April, and as I said, is the last one that we will have for this grant year. I hope that everyone has a good Tuesday, a safe Tuesday. Enjoy this day, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.